Oh, yeah, no,
You
you're
need
good. I'm
one?
good. I'm good. Y'all go.
I
We're good.
need that tonight. Always full.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Kelvin?
Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that you have given us. Father, we thank you for the sunshine. Lord, we thank you for everything that you do. Father, I ask you that you continue to bless each and one of us in this room. Father, we ask you to bless our teachers and our students, not just here, but everywhere, Father. Father, we just ask you to continue to just strengthen us on a daily basis. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Kelvin. And Linda's going to read the mission.
The mission of Gatesville ISD, a portal of limited possibilities, is to empower our students to be life-ready knowledge seekers and problem solvers by instilling leadership, innovation, integrity, critical thinking, and service through challenging and engaging learning experiences, facilitated by passionate teachers and supported by caring parents and community members.
Thank you. Any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Webb?
Y'all ready for me?
We
It's
are ready
early.
for your presentation.
Get right to you.
How's everybody doing tonight? Well, this right here is something that we have to do every year. It's a public hearing over to discuss our latest, it's called TAPER, Texas Academic Performance Report. And it's kind of, this is our school district and school report card, essentially, is kind of how you'd want to look at it. And it's, a lot of it is based off of the STAR test. And of course, last year, we did not have a STAR test. And so there is some new information in here, but a lot of the information you're going to see in here is a repeat from last year. And so just as we're going through this, but these are just some of the pieces that the TAPER report will look at. And so they're going to look at your STAR scores at different levels, approaches grade level or above. And you can see here I've got 17. I left the comparison because I know last year we, typically we'll just do it by year, but last year you guys like to see a comparison from year to year, so I left that on there. But you see you don't have a 2020 on here because we did not have a 2020 STAR test. And so I just have a note on here, just says, please note that due to the cancellation of the spring 2020 STAR test, the performance section of this year's report is not updated. And so we can kind of go through all this, but I left it on there where you guys can kind of see just where we've been in the past few years. Same thing, it just kind of goes down. But if you remember before our last report last year, our district rating was a B with a score of 87. So we were really close to an A, but like I said, due to the pandemic, schools were not rated, and it was declared a state of disaster. So kind of go through there. These are just some of the things that that the report looks at. Keep going. And we'll look at reading, math, science, social studies, all subjects. Kind of keep on going. It's a lot of information.
I like that you compare the years. That's nice.
I went ahead and decided just to leave it on there so you
Yeah.
can see it. So whenever we have the next one for accountability, we'll put it back on there and kind of see where we're standing. All right, this is the next section. So the TAPER report also looks at academic growth. And we only had 18 and 19 on there because before that there would have been a growth. And so It's the same thing, so you can kind of just see where we were 18, 19 compared when you look at a student's growth. So this is a student going from 4th to 5th, 5th to 6th, and so on for reading and math, social studies and science for the grade levels that have an exam. And then when we get past this section, we'll kind of get to some of our newer updated pieces of the report. Look at your Algebra 1, English 2, all grades, all subjects. And then another part of the report, okay, is attendance rate. So you can kind of look at our attendance rate, and some of these indicators are lagging indicators. So like attendance rate, it's reporting 2018, 2019. It's not reporting 2019, 2020. So it's a lagging indicator. That's about 2 years behind. But you can kind of see our attendance rate ticked back up to 94.8 last year, 2 years ago, as opposed to the 94.4 before. Our annual dropout rate, which is typically around the same, it's probably one kid, so you can see there we were 0.5%. College-ready graduates, so these are kids that have taken dual credit classes, have made the passing scores on TSI, have been in a prep class. And so we're sitting roughly about where we were from 2017, 2018. College career military readiness, same thing. We were doing those board goals on this not long ago. Can you scroll back up? We're doing those board goals not long ago on this, and you can see, we're doing so well, it's hard to make an incremental gain on some of that. But, that's your TSI, kids who have earned an industry certification, kids who have signed a letter of intent to join the military, encompasses that average there. Average SAT scores, and I'm not sure why the outlier there is 2016. I don't know if you didn't have very many kids taking the SAT there, but it's pretty close to where it's been the past several years. Average ACT scores, this is kind of another lagging indicator, class of 2019. It's about the same. It also looks at your student ethnic distribution. Try to put this up there as best I could. 2018, 2019, 2020. You can kind of see our ethnic distribution is changing slightly each year. Student demographics. You look at your economically disadvantaged, your English language learners, students with disciplinary placements, and our students that are coded at risk. At risk can mean a lot of different things. Teachers' years of experience is also a piece of the TAPER report. I kind of compared those. I kind of have had a little bit of an uptick there for our years of experience. So you can see most of our teachers are in the 11 to 20 year range. And then when you look at, it looks at enrollment by program, so how many percentage of our students that are enrolled in bilingual or ESL, career and technical education. And I know that career and technical education looks small, but it looks at all students. It doesn't just look at high school students, and so that's why it looks like it's only a third. But when you got 850 high school kids out of 2,800, that's where that number kind of comes in. Your GT population, and then your special ed numbers, your special education percentages.
What would what would the CTE be in high school?
What it
Just
was
a wild
it?
guess.
Was the last time we reported on it was like 92%.
Yeah,
a kid that was enrolled in CT programs, and kids that you'll miss on that are going to be like your fine arts kids that are enrolled in band. They might be in marching band. They might be in 2 or 3 different band periods, and so it's hard for them to get be enrolled in a CTE program. And so their endorsement may be in some other area. It probably is in fine arts or something like that. So that's,
It's
you know,
high.
that's where that number probably comes from. It's probably about 30 to 40 kids that aren't enrolled in some sort of CTE program. It also looks at, it tracks your kids that have, after they have graduated, and kind of how they're performing in school is another piece of it. And the last one would have been graduates from 2018, and so it looks at your total number of kids that enrolled into a 4-year public school, and it looks at their GPA based on how they performed. Looks at their 2-year public, this is their first year in college, but their 2-year public college, so a junior college of some sort. And then they can't really track independent colleges, private schools. And then there's 4 kids not trackable, and there's 107 not found that probably didn't go to school, or they don't know where they are. And so a total of 204 graduates, but that's just kind of lets you kind of know how your kids are performing after they graduate high school. And then that's really it. It's not as much to share because we don't have all the STAR data as you normally would. Does anybody have any questions over the TAPER report?
Do we have any information available where we can compare our school to other schools our size?
Yeah, we could pull their TAPER reports. We'd have to look at their reports, and we could compare them that way.
That'd be a lot of work. I just
Yeah.
was curious, generally, how do we stack up against other schools our size in this
They used
geographical area?
to look at you based on comparable schools. They'd look at your 40 comparable schools and kind of how you're performing in certain areas. We haven't had that in a few years.
But those are on the other schools' websites.
Actually, you can go into the TEA and go into
Okay.
you can go pull up their federal report, their report card,
Yeah.
and compare them that way.
Now, I understand this year's STAR scores will be available to us, but they won't be they won't be
Correct.
graded.
We'll be in the same boat next year, so when I present this next year, it'll be the same,
that's
it'll
what I
be
was
the
thinking.
same thing.
We should have figured yet.
It'll be a not rated, or who knows, they could come back and say, well, give us a what if grade. We don't know that yet. They may have us take a STAR test and then go ahead and give us a what if. Well, what if you were gonna get a grade this year? This is what it would be. We don't know that yet. Now, they did come out last week and said, if you're a remote student, you do not have to take the test. Before, they were gonna make you come up, you had to come to the school was responsible for getting you up here to take the exam, but they came out last week and says if you are a remote student, they're not gonna be required to come
Which is
take the
20%
test.
of our kids.
Or more if they
Well,
find that out.
Yeah, well, you look at high school, it's even more than that, so.
But on the whole, yes, 20%.
It could lead to other
I didn't know
things,
that.
but, so testing's gonna be another difficult, thing this year as well. So, does anybody have any other questions?
Anybody?
What if they were remote and came back for 6 or 9 weeks and then went back remote again,
If they were remote at the time of the test, then they don't have to.
just at the time of the test?
At the time of that's our impression. It's ever changing.
It sounds like it.
The Texas Tribune cornered Mike Rapp on an interview, and the reporter was very good at interrogating, and he cornered him multiple times on questions like that. Like the other question was, well, what about funding? Where are you going to make the decision? He said, soon. Well, what does soon mean? I'm not going to give you a date. But so he pressed him over and over again. At the end of the interview, he even said, how much longer are you going to do this? So,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I understand if you will follow the TEA, your last week's attendance is disregarded.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's a good point.
No. To answer part of your question there, Mr. Ferguson, it won't look at comparisons to other schools. It will look at you compared to the state and to our region, so Region 12. And so just some of the highlights I'd put in here, our percentage of 2018-2019 graduates that were college, career, and military ready was almost 92% compared to 74% of Region 12. College ready graduates in 2019 was 81% compared to 49% of Region 12. The percentage of students meeting the TSI college entrance requirements for us was 41%, and compared to Region 12 it was only about 27%. Average SAT scores for us is 1096, for Region 12 it's 1042. Our average SAT score is 20.8 compared to our region is 19.7. So those are just some highlights. It's not compared like looking at how we compare it to Lampasas or China Spring, but it look at like all the schools inside of Region 12, inside of our Central Texas location here.
That may be larger or smaller, either one.
Correct. It may be larger or smaller. That encompasses Coppers Cove, Killeen, McGregor, Waco, all of those areas.
But you could pull up those, if
Yeah.
any school you wanted to look at, you could.
Correct.
When they used to give the 40 comparable schools, it weren't schools you'd think of. It wasn't anybody it wasn't China Spring and Robinson and it was always somewhere way off that where's that?
They'll look at a school that was maybe the same demographics or special ed. They try to compare on this. Yeah, it wouldn't compare us to a Burnett or something like that. There's no telling where those 40 schools around the state would come from.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
So now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Are you scratching your head or are you
I was
raising your hand?
scratching my head.
Okay.
Great time to be scratching your head.
Cheyenne made a motion. Is there a second? Linda? Okay. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. And now for some information items. Pam, are you first?
I am
Okay.
first. I haven't gotten to see y'all in a while.
Glad to see you. This is the special ed audit update.
So, TEA looks at every district in the state of Texas, and so they do that over a 6-year cycle. And they just started that recently, within the last year and a half, and we were on their agenda actually for the end of last year. But when COVID started, we were delayed into this year. And so they look at the best practices throughout the district. They also look at program review. They're looking at your policies, your compliance, both state and federal guidelines. And then the purpose of it is just positive support for districts. What can you do better? What are your strengths? And so they look at all of those different areas. So when we look at the different areas they evaluated, they looked at 7 different areas. So they looked at child find, evaluation, and then free appropriate public education. And so they were looking more in depth on how we identify our students for special education services. They also looked at our individual education plan development. So the goals that we write for our kids, how we plan for them, and provide specialized supports for them. Then they looked at the content of that. So when you get into your art committee meetings, they looked more in depth at the paperwork, making sure that you were meeting all the compliance pieces on that. And that goes along with the implementation too, that you were carrying out the services. A big factor for that as well was state assessment. Do you have your students taking the correct test? whether it be online, pencil and paper, or did you have them slotted for maybe a star alt, which was more modified. They looked at the ARD committee meetings as a whole. Were they properly constituted? Did you have everybody present for them? Were all the guidelines followed? And the last piece they looked at was transition. And the transition pieces were for early childhood into elementary, but then they also looked at secondary, which ranges from 14 to 22 years of age. These were our requirements for the audit. So when the audit started, the first thing they did was they went online and looked at all of our policies and procedures to make sure all of our framework was in order. There are certain standards and procedures we have to have listed online. So they looked at all of that. They also requested 23 files uploaded, and our special education files are thick, so it was a major task pulling all of the paperwork that they were requesting for all of that. On top of the students that were sent, we had to send work samples. So they looked at different areas in there. So they looked at 23 files total. It was 6 students who initially came into special education services, 6 students that were in transition, whether it was early childhood or secondary transition, 4 students that qualified for special education with dyslexia. They wanted to see the services that were being provided. And then the last 7 could be anything, any other options there. One of the other things they did a stakeholder survey. They surveyed the entire district and took all that information, and that was included in our report. We also had on-site interviews. They interviewed 6 administrators, 5 special education teachers, 3 general education teachers, and then also parents. And their on-site interviews were actually Zoom, so it was quite challenging for some of them to kind of maneuver the internet around here to do that. And the last piece was a self-assessment. So we had to look at ourselves as a district, and we had to rate ourselves. There were 23 different areas that we looked at, and the committee we put together started meeting at the end of last school year, and so we had that piece completed. And the majority of ours came out in the proficient range. We had a few areas that we're still developing in. This part right here looks at the outcomes of the audit. And these are based on the 7 different areas we just talked about. So on child finds and that top one, out of the 18 policies we had to have posted, we had all 18 there. With everything policy related is in that first column right there. So we had all the pieces that they were requesting. We have them posted and in place where they should be. Out of our student files, everything that we sent to them, we were 100% compliant in all of those as well. So that was good news.
Wow.
The last thing they looked at for us was our, let me turn my page, what we call RDA, it's response-driven accountability. And so they look at our STAR assessment, they look at how our students did on that, they look at discipline on that report. There's several different areas that they look at. Last school year, we were under intervention in three areas. It was for discipline, placement decisions, it was for STAR writing, grades 4 and 7, and then what we call accelerated intervention plans, excuse me, for high school. So accelerated intervention plans are interventions that we put in place for students who do not meet standard on their STAR scores. So it's a legal requirement of our ARD. If they don't meet the score approaching, then we intervene. We give them extra help in those areas to meet those standards. And so this rating here for this year, last year we were what was a DL3, this year we were a 1. So we came out of intervention this year.
Good.
The second area we looked at is state performance plan indicators. They look at child find. Are you identifying students as early as you can, like early childhood, like 3 years? They also look at early childhood transition and the secondary transition. And we were compliant in those areas too. So we had great scores across the board. It was great news. The final piece of the report just gave us some strengths and considerations as a district to consider. They said we had a great sense of culture and community within our staff and parents. Everybody had positive things to say about each other. They looked at RTI on each campus, and they called that a strength for us. They looked at the PASS program we have on each campus, and PASS helps with the behavior intervention for students on campuses. And then for the considerations, there were some general education teachers that wanted more training, so we'll be looking at those over the summer for them. They also recommended that we put together a parent cohort so that more community liaison between school and community. Giving resources to parents for the outside community. And the last one was accommodations in the virtual environment. Remote learning has been a challenge. Accommodations through remote learning is a challenge, as well as services. So just trying to make those more positive. I think that's it.
We want to really thank Pam and her team, because anytime you get an audit, it's nerve-wracking. When you get an audit of special ed, it's especially nerve-wracking. And so to get perfect scores on all that, and really a lot of compliments from the 3 auditors, we were really pleased and give a sigh of relief too. So Pam was sure glad to get that over with.
I was. And
Outstanding.
our special education department, they just do a fantastic job. Well, all of our departments do, but just going through all of this, I mean, it put them under pressure too, having to.
Well, that paperwork, that puts such a strain on everyone to copy all those papers, scan them, setting up interviews. It's just, that's very time consuming on top of everything else we do. And right before we walked in here today, I was looking at an email, I guess we're going to get an audit of our evening meal program based on last February. So the audits just keep coming. Yeah,
They just keep coming.
just keep coming. So, but Pam, thank you. You did a great job.
Yes, thank you very
Do you have any
much.
questions?
Yay,
Great.
Good job.
appreciate it. You want to go on to the administrative personnel changes?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, moving on with the informational items, the first one there under my section is some administrative changes. And so last summer, Marcia decided she was going to hang it up as a full-time assistant superintendent. And so she agreed to come back this year and be part-time. And that was a big help, because it gave us continuity during all the renovation and COVID. And so Marcia was really a big help being here. And so she has agreed to help train our next person. That's going to be Scott Harper. And so Mr. Harper will start shadowing her and learning things from her as far as her job responsibilities. And then that left to get, it creates a domino effect. So Scott's job was then open. And Scott, you know, he's been here a long time. He's not a native of Gatesville, but he feels like it. He's been at the primary as a principal, and intermediate school as a principal, and now at the central office. And so his position opened up, and then we selected Yancey Sanderson from the high school. And so Yancey's already been here 7 years. It's hard to believe he's been here that long, but he served a long time in Copper's Cove. And so both of those guys will start kind of shadowing each other, shadowing Marcia, and we're sure grateful for Marcia and both of those guys. And we hope that given these next few months, there'll be plenty of time to kind of get prepared for the new role, and the transition will be easy. So we're now working on the high school principal job, and we've got a committee meeting tomorrow to talk with Ms. Barrows some more And so we've already had an introductory kind of committee meeting on her. And so we're going to talk some more with her tomorrow, and we'll likely be coming to you next month with that. And so the staff has been appreciative of kind of being informed along the way, and not a bunch of guessing and waiting, and more just, hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Are you good with this? And they've been appreciative of that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So just to kind of keep you guys in the loop.
Okay. Any questions?
Next up, attendance updates. And so this may be a futile effort, but I write these letters like to the commissioner. I even wrote one to the governor. I may write one to the president just for kicks. And I think they just wad them up and probably throw them in the trash. But our advocates and our lobbyists for public school encourage superintendents to go ahead and write them. Go ahead and call them. Go ahead and try to keep on them that you want them to do certain things. And so I had a call in today to Don Buckingham, and I've talked to Shelby Slauson, and I've written these letters. And so basically what we're wanting is a couple of things. First, we hope that they held our attendance harmless these first couple of 6 weeks because they were afraid that attendance was going to be down. Well, Lisa Haynes did a really good job here of getting together a comparison. And so the first 6 weeks of this year, last year at this time we were at 96%. We were down to 95.7. That was the first 6 weeks this year. Second 6 weeks we're actually up a little bit compared to last year at this time, 94.4% compared to 93.6. But then you get into that third 6 weeks, we're up there before Christmas, and it starts to really go down. See, it was 92.5% last year. Now it's not only 90.6. So on the whole for the semester, we're down about 4/10. It looks like it was 94.2 last year. It's 93.8 this year, and 4/10 may not seem like a lot, but that impacts your funding, and it's showing that the kids aren't in school. And one thing that I get aggravated with is that, on social media, parents will say stuff like, well, they only want them at school to get those dollars. That's all they're worried about. Well, that's partly true because one, our first concern is that they're not in school learning. The second concern is, sure, that's funding. Okay, here's 10 teachers that you know and love in the community. Which one do you want to get laid off? Well, yeah, that is a big deal. So yeah, it is about money. And so I hate that they kind of make that comment. So one thing that we're asking from the state is to switch funding from ADA, average daily attendance, and just base it on enrollment. One time, here's your enrollment. Okay, we're going to base your funding on that all year, and you don't have to worry about the ups and downs. I think the state is concerned that, well, we want our entities to hold kids accountable for attendance. Well, we do make home visits and write letters and call and all that, but when the court system a few years ago gave up on punishing any parent for just letting their child stay at home, it doesn't have any teeth. There's no teeth. You can't take them to the justice of the peace anymore and give them a fine or a court cost. And not that that was a good thing, but at least it sometimes stoked the parents into, well, we better get our kid to school. And so I wanted to give you guys an update on the attendance, where we're at, and then also I included those 2 letters that I wrote, basically, again, wanting to be held harmless and then really thinking about transitioning to the funding based on enrollment. So Commissioner Morath said that he'll make a decision soon, and we don't know what that means exactly. So that's where we're at on attendance. Any comments on that?
Question. Is it better if you have a student enrolled and not attending, or attending just every once in a while, or not on the roll at all?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Does it average out the same?
I don't know. Are you talking about in the current system or what we're?
Yeah, well, current system, because, it's based upon your percentage of attendance.
Right.
So if you attended just every once in a while, you get a small fraction compared to
compared
not
to
being a part
nothing.
of your total enrollment.
Yeah, that's the way I would think it would work, Charles.
Yeah, but
Is that right, Daryl?
When they're in attendance, like
Attendance.
when they're there, they're generating money.
Yeah,
right.
When they're not
they
there,
don't generate money.
So you better off to have him have a in the attendance count, or
Well, I mean, that depends on how.
totally
they-
not
how
enrolled.
they- That depends on how they're gonna structure the formula. You know, I mean, if they could do it by enrollment
yeah.
and not penalize school districts that have low attendance,
Yeah,
or on the other hand, they could do the whole harmless, which basically takes your average from the prior year and brings it forward. So they look more of a historical trend on the whole harmless. So, you know, for us, it's about a $500,000 revenue item that we're concerned about. And what would happen is that his third 6 weeks sale on his chart would, you know, extend through the rest of the school year. So you mentioned the third 6 weeks, it took a good dip. So assuming that dip continues for another 6 weeks,
Right.
then you're looking at about at least a $500,000 of revenue loss.
What I've noticed on your percentages, where they've been real strong in the lower grades, like junior high and intermediate and elementary, those numbers are the ones that's down.
yeah.
It's not, I mean, high school's holding about the same. Junior high used to be real strong down through really elementary. Those numbers are down.
Yeah, we feel like the remote option this year has given, it's a slippery slope. You know, you start out fairly industrious with remote learning, and then as the weeks and months go on, you're like, you know. And so it's a slippery slope to where you're basically not doing much of anything. So in the months to come, I'll be coming to you, I'm going to speak with Dr. Winchell one-on-one about updating our kind of COVID-related plan, as far as now that most of our staff who wanted the vaccination has gotten it, both of the shots. We'll have one more follow-up session on March 5th. And so basically, we've probably had already a couple of hundred staff members that have gotten both shots. So in theory, they're already immune. The CDC and Biden administration have reiterated again what was being said formerly, that schools are not a source of community spread. And so basically what has happened, we've had way more negative unintended consequences of going to remote learning than positive consequences of shielding them from some sort of COVID-related illness, probably, in my mind. I feel like that it's been more detrimental to dropouts, truancy, poor grades, failure, retention looming. And so you try to do something to protect the masses from something that you think is going to harm them, and it almost in a way it shoots you in the foot. At least with this age group. You know, the children just don't seem to be as affected as other demographics. So I sure do hope with the vaccinations of the staff, the more we know about the virus, that we can, you know, at some point abandon the virtual learning. And,
Also, that third 6 weeks, there was a real uptick in Coryell County in COVID-related.
yeah.
I mean, we've gone through a period where there's a lot of more people that were identified positive.
Yeah.
Now that's beginning to taper off. That might be reflected in the fourth 6 weeks.
Yeah. We have right now currently only 3 active cases. And so comparable to 60, 70, 80 at our highest. And
I
the
don't see how
other,
the state can punish us for that.
I know. The other unfortunate thing that we see in the lower grades where they don't wear masks is that, and this is really unfortunate, but it's our protocol, one student can knock out 65 kids. 65 of you go home now and stay home for 2 weeks. And I had a daughter involved in that. You know, home for 14 days, then the ice hits, home for another 10, 11, 12 days. Well, you've got a whole month and you've had a little bit of schooling online, and that's it.
probably what's hurting attendance-wise
Yeah.
more, is all the quarantining.
Yeah.
And if they don't have access to get online, then you can't count them for attendance. That's, with all the quarantining, that's what's really hurting.
So hopefully, I'm hoping that with the numbers being down, the hospitalization rate is down. So thankfully the bars can open. I'm excited about that. And, but hopefully, I'm hoping that the number, that's indicative of things to come, summer, that'll stay down. And like I said, I just don't know that we can continue that option next year. It's too detrimental to the kids. I think we've learned a lot. We've vaccinated a lot of adults and should be in good shape. So, any other questions about attendance? One other good little thing that we wanted to include here tonight was that soccer, we believe, is coming to junior high. And so we've already added golf and tennis this year to junior high. I'll tell you, junior high is really becoming a nice place to be. And so now soccer will be coming next year. Right now, Ricky's been doing some research. Academy, La Vega, Cove, Salado, La Pasas, Temple, Midway all have soccer at the junior high level. Brownwood, Burnett, Robinson are going to add it next year too. And so it would be in the month of April. It wouldn't interfere with any other sports. It'd be a combined course, we think, between 7th and 8th grade students. And we can handle it with our current staff. Don't have to add anybody or any expense. And so what a great opportunity for kids, something new and different for maybe a student who doesn't want to play the other sports, but soccer's their passion. They finally would have a chance to start young and be prepared when they get to high school.
Good.
That's great.
That's a good thing.
It is. It is. Next, cell phone policy. We had a parent reach out to you guys, and y'all had expressed a desire to look at this. And what I have done, this is kind of the first of maybe a couple of parts. We may revisit this again probably in a future meeting, but I looked here, I mistakenly didn't attach the policy, but we have a cell phone policy at each campus. In talking to the teachers and admin, I think the lower campuses, primary, elementary, intermediate, even junior high, for the most part, don't have a lot of issues. Junior high sent out an email to the campus today, the staff, reminding them of when cell phones could be out, which is a very limited amount of time, and when they are not supposed to be out. High school agreed that they're probably the campus that needs to work on it, tighten it up. And I talked to a large group of the staff probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and just kind of talk to them, not about problems so much in the classroom, but just problems that go on online with students in general, where they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, looking at things they shouldn't be looking at, and getting themselves into trouble. And so they agreed we need to do something to tighten it up. And they said, well, what do you want us to do? I said, well, I want you guys to come up with a plan that, one, will make sure that it's not a distraction. 2, that you guys come up with an agreement that you'll enforce. Because if I just come up with something and hand it to you, that's not nearly as good as you coming up with it and you buying into it and you enforcing it. And the one thing that they all agreed with is that if on this hallway of 10 teachers, 9 of us enforce it, but one of them says, no, don't worry about it, that it blows the whole thing up. That you cannot do that. We've got to come to consensus on something that we live with. And I think it's another one of those situations where the good intentions got out of hand as far as, well, if you don't have a Chromebook in front of you, get your phone out and you can look up something about the War of 1812. Well, it's so tempting. Well, let me just check my Facebook just right quick. What is this text that I just got here? Well, even as adults, we do that. You'll look at it, it'll start buzzing and beeping and vibrate. Well, what is that? And so it's such a distraction. And what we're, talking to them now, especially at high school, if every student has one of these, they don't need one of these to look anything up. They can use this. And so we were supposed to use the 2 days in February that got iced over to go over that and give them time to look at it. So I'm going to revisit that with them and hopefully come back to you guys here with kind of an updated plan and what they're going to do to try to kind of wrangle that in and get it more under control. Cell phones, can't live with them, can't live without them. tough thing to please.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion.
Yeah. Any other questions about that?
Are any principals involved in that discussion?
Yes, they will be. They will be. That first group I talked with was probably about 35, 40 people that were just teachers. But also nurses, counselor, but no principal. And, but you know, they need to be involved too, because ultimately if a student gets sent to the office or something because of the phone, you know, they need to be prepared to do what's necessary to get them out to do it.
I like that they're gonna come up with the plan.
Yes, yes.
And since there's a monetary punishment for students who get their cell phones taken up, it really needs to be done fairly.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got to go through all that, and because, you know, we've looked at some other districts too, like I think we looked at Midways. Shane, didn't you look at Midways? Somebody looked at maybe it was Scott, that, you know, the first time they take it up, it's $10, and the second time it's, you know, one of those things. But again, I don't know what all we want to do with that. We've got to think all that through, but we need to come up with something fair, but stiff enough to where the kids will put them away. It's very distracting. All right.
Okay.
We'll revisit that again.
And I guess Mr. Frazier.
Good luck on that one.
Yeah, it's a,
The easiest thing to do is just say you got a computer, you don't need the telephone. If it's out, or
Right.
it can be seen, it's ours.
that's right.
But then the kids don't wanna give
Sure.
it up. So I think there ought to be some discipline in place
Sure.
for failure to forfeit.
For refusal, yeah.
Yeah. Personal 2 cents.
Yeah.
Besides the financial
Right.
of getting it taken,
Well,
just
and
the action
I-
of
you
not
know,
giving.
getting it taken up is, I mean, that could be severe enough as far as I'm concerned. If
Sure.
you- Now, where I work is $10,
Yeah.
but then the parents, I think, have to come get it. I think we've done that before too.
Right.
But if they're asked for it, I think they have a reasonable request. They need to do what they're asked to do.
Sure.
I'm really encouraged to hear that the teachers themselves say that they want all of the teachers to be consistent. To me, that's you can't have one classroom and I can do it, in the next classroom I can't.
Yeah.
That's just asking for problems.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that will undo even the best laid plans if
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
All right.
Daryl, you ready?
Daryl?
I was just having a conversation about cell phones.
Daryl was having a rolling blackout.
I walked in the room, I did a quick check, and I said, oh, we got a full house here.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord, we didn't lose any board members last week during the last
We're
storm.
thankful.
That's wonderful, glad you guys are doing well. All right, the next item on our agenda has to do with the consulting firm that the district uses to process reimbursements for the Medicaid program. Kiddos who are eligible for Medicaid, the services that are rendered on their behalf, most of these services are through the SPED department, special ed department, also the transportation department. Those services are being billed to the government, and we get reimbursements. Those reimbursements have gotten pretty handy. $700,000-800,000 the last couple of years. So it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And for the past, I guess, about 5 years, the firm that we've been using is MSB out of Austin. And particularly, I guess, in the last couple of years, we've been kind of looking around for another option. We had some rocky roads, and I don't want to berate that company. They're a fine company, and we're ending our relationship with MSB on an amicable basis. You never know, we might return to them. They started at an 8% commission, was their percentage that they charge us based on the reimbursements. Last year, they agreed to do it for 7%. And this new company that we're going with is Onward Learning, also out of Austin. They're at 5%. So it's going to be a nice little reduction in our fee. And We feel that they're gonna do a good job. Mostly Pam and I that did some shopping around and talking to other groups that do this kind of service. And we were both pretty much unanimous that the Onward Learning was the best choice for our school district. The contract that I have in your board packet was signed actually in December, because we wanted to get the thing kind of the ball rolling after we got back from the Christmas break, in terms of making that a kind of a nice break for her staff using the new system, which would be Onward, because they have an entire new computer platform that they use. We did notify MSB on the 1st of February, and their current contract expires in of March. So this is the kind of the transition that we're doing with this company so far. Pam says everything's going well with the new company. They've been very gracious to work with. And so we're letting you know, more than likely the annual cost will be about $40,000, so it's below the $50,000 threshold required for formal board approval. This company is part of the TIPS purchasing co-op, so even if it should go up more than the $40,000, we're still covered in terms of aligning this particular contract with our procurement policies. Any questions about this move from MSB to Onward? Again, we want to thank our MSB people for working with us for about 5 years, and they've done a good job. And we wish them well. There are a lot of good people that we work with, and this new company also has a fine group of people that are working with us now. So, no questions. I will move on to the next item.
Action item, yes, go ahead.
Electricity?
Yep.
That's a hot button, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know what it's like to live without electricity for 3 days in a row.
It's not very much fun.
Yeah.
We're
Thanks to
spoiled.
Peanut for loaning my wife and I a propane bottle with a heater on it. Well, boy, when you don't have electricity and you don't have any other form of heat, it's cold. And I thanked them and told them that if they hadn't done that, they probably would have discovered a couple stiffs living on Jackson Drive this week. But anyway, so this is going to have an impact, guys, on electric rates. So I got with Barrett last week, and I said, well, we've been talking about it, and we've been looking around for rates, because actually our contract currently expires at the end of May. And so that's not something that you want to wait till the last minute, to start looking into what's next in terms of our contract. That's pretty much, it was an extended contract, lasted quite a few years. And the rate we're paying is actually 4.1 cents. Those of you who know anything about electric rates per kilowatt hour, and so that's a good rate. We were hoping maybe to get down to 3.8, 3.9 before last week. It's probably not going to be possible. I understand that they had a 10% reserve. Now they're going to require 30% reserve for ERCOT, which to build up that kind of reserve over the next few months is going to mean they're going to have to produce a lot more electricity. So that means cha-ching, dollars, cents. So this is going to text Barrett. So let's get this on the board meeting this Monday, and ask the board to authorize the superintendent to enter into an electric contract, so long as that contract is within 5% of our current rate. If it is outside that range, then we would call a special meeting of the board. But if we can get a reasonable rate within 5% of what we're currently paying, and I think we'll be able to get some quotes this week. I know 2 or 3 places they're going to give us quotes. They will fall in line with our procurement policies. One is a quote that's off of the not Bybor, TASB, and they work off of an interlocal agreement. There's another outfit that we're working with that has a state contract, And then there's a third one, we'll see what we can work out with them, you know, out of Plano. But we hope to get a favorable rate, maybe not, may not even go up, I don't know. So we're hoping to be able to stay at that 4.1 cent.
So you're saying the highest would be 9?
No,
What'd you say?
5% of,
5, just.
5% of 4 cents. It's a very
Oh,
small.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, okay,
The rates, they're
But that-
saying the rates are gonna go to 9
okay.
later this year. That's what they're
So
predicting.
5% of 4.
Yeah, double. Our rates is double. So we wanna stay within the 4 cents.
Sure.
And if we can stay within that 4 cents, then I think we're gonna be good. We can't find someone that will quote us within that rate, and we'll get the best quote and bring it to you on a special board meeting. How's that? That good? It's a big contract. It's $500,000 a year. You know, so it's a lot of money, your electric bill. So that's our recommendation to the school board tonight, is for you to authorize your superintendent, Dr. Pollard, to enter into an electric contract so long as the variance does not exceed 5% of our current rate.
Okay. Is there a motion for that recommendation, Charlie? Jimmy, did you?
Wait, no.
Jimmy made the motion and Charlie seconded. Okay, any questions for Mr. Frazier? All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. All yes. Thank you.
Good?
We're good. I think you're next too.
Next item. RFP for food service. Okay. So, you know, we've been with Sodexo for quite a few years now, 6 years, I think. And the board was actually quite involved in that process initially. We were losing money hand over fist every year on the food service department. And it looked like it was climbing toward the $300,000 loss in the year in which we decided to contract with a company to run the operation for us. And I think over the years, the complexities of food service has just gotten more and more difficult. And it's just really hard for a school district, especially probably everything that's our size, to have the expertise necessary to run it appropriately. And the fact that we have that many running losses is pretty indicative that we needed to make a change. And we actually did bid, and Sodexo won the bid. And y'all recall, those of you who were there then, maybe Mary Ann, you're the one here that was in it, part of
They
that
brought
process.
some pretty
Yeah.
good food one night for us
Yeah,
to eat.
it was fun. A lot of kids got involved in it too. You know, they went to do some tastings at different vendors, and even the kids themselves came back and said, oh, we love Sodexo. So, anyway, I think I gave you a chart in here that shows you the yearly losses since 2002, right there. So you can see here, we were, finger needs to be longer. Way up there pushing 300,000. And so that's when we decided to go out for bids and let's hire a food service company to run our operation. So you see what happened to the loss. It went down significantly and into the 50,000 range. And for one reason or another, we just, now we're stuck at the 50. Of course, the last year was COVID. And COVID, if it weren't for COVID, I really think that 62 could have been a break even if we hadn't had COVID. And of course, if we hadn't had the dinner program, which we had last year, then that number would have been worse. So we're still aiming, to get to a break even someday with this operation. But that's the story on the losses and why we decided to go the route that we did. Because we have two choices now. The contract expires at the end of June with Sodexo. So you as a board, you could decide, let's go back to self-op, where we operate ourselves. So that's one option the board could go. The second option is, now let's stay with a food service management company, and we have to go out for bids. This is all done under the auspices of the Texas Department of Agriculture in Austin, TDA, one of our favorite organizations. We couldn't have the food service program if it weren't for TDA and USDA, but they're very, very particular, and they love to audit. And like he said, we just got another notice for another audit, and I just finished the other audit right before last week. But anyway, we're recommending as a management team that we go ahead and continue with the food service management company and not consider going back to self-audit. It's just gotten even worse in terms of the regulations. And they, oh man, especially since COVID, it's been a wild ride, guys. It's almost like every single day. USDA, TDA was coming out with new rules, no one gonna do this, no one gonna do that. And, you know, they were just constantly, really, literally on a daily basis, making significant changes to our food office program. It's kind of settled down now. Of course, you know that we're on a free basis for all students for the rest of the school year. So that certainly helps. And I'll put up a little chart here for you to show you the market share. There's 171 school districts in the state of Texas that use a food service management company. And that's the current fiscal year that we're in, 2021. The one that's in the lead is Airmark. They're in the red. They were one of the bidders last time. The second one is Southwest. And then there's Chartwell's. And Sodexo is at 12%. And a bunch of other smaller ones in the 10%. The thing about Sodexo is they're very strong in the Waco area. They have a lot of schools. Did I put up that chart at all? Yeah, I did. It's below this one. Scroll back down. There you go. Okay, so here's your Region 12 school district. And you can see that Sodexo, you know, has the lion's share of the food service management company contracts in the Waco area, which was really one of the strong points why we went to Sodexo, because they had a very strong presence in our immediate area. And they could back us up, you know, with personnel and services, and they were very strong. For instance, Airmark's got 2, La Vega and Midway. Southwest has Mahia, Chartwell's has Hillsborough. So we'll, you know, send this out, and at this point, the RFP has been produced. You have to produce it strictly by the guidance of the TDA using their template. And it's about a 100-page document, a lot of data. So it's been submitted as of last week to TDA for their approval. And once they approve it, then we'll start sending out the RFPs. We'll advertise for it, we'll place it on our website. And the goal on this time chart that I gave you is to bring it back to the board on Monday, April 19th for approval of the winning bidder. And that contract will begin on July the 1st of 2021. That's how all that works. So there's the timeline, probably already been pushed back a little bit because they actually made another change last week. And they don't know they don't know exactly what the remedy is. But this one's coming down from USDA on top of TDA. And they're making TDA do something that they've never done before. And so then the ripple effect will be how we're going to implement this with all these 171 school districts that are using food service management companies. So I have a webinar Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have some answers on Wednesday, but meanwhile, our RFP is stuck down there in Austin, I guess until they can figure this out. So the time delay here is already going to be a little bit later, and I'll have to crunch it up some to still stay within the April 19th deadline for the board to approve. All right, so management recommends that we continue operating our food service department to a food service management company. And number 2, that we issue an RFP and we're soliciting vendors.
Okay, is there a
It's an action
motion
item.
for Linda? Is there a second? Cheyenne? Any questions for Mr. Frazier?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
When you say we're hiring Sodexo to run our cafeterias, does that mean that we just furnish them our facilities and they come in and do everything?
That's a good question. Yeah, let me,
Or do we
let me
have,
answer that.
are we entwined with them in any way?
We are on a fixed fee basis. So we pay so much per meal. That's how, and the invoices every month.
And they
This many
prepare it?
meals times the fee, and that's what we pay. Now, it's a partnership because there's a lot of things that they do for us to manage our program. At some point, you could have, when we started it, had all the staff of all of our cafeterias be Sodexo employees. But we chose to have Gail Shelton be the only person that would be a Sodexo employee. So she left our employment whenever we started all this, and she has been on the payroll for Sodexo Company ever since then. And all the other staff, the food prep individuals, they are still, to this day, our employees. So they report to us, we, cut their paychecks, we decide what their pay is gonna be. They follow all of our guidelines as far as the employee handbook. And
So
it's
we
more
like
Gail
having
being an
that
outsider,
under control.
Supervising, I guess you'd say, she's kind of supervising.
Right.
But she is the food service director. And anytime we do hires, she's intimately involved in hiring replacements for any of our people. But so it's a partnership. Does that explain it?
Yes, you were talking about cost. Is it more cost efficient for us to hire our own people? Or would the amount that we paid Sodexo go up if they did it all?
Yeah. I don't know, we just didn't want to go there
Okay.
for our school district, for Gatesville. We didn't feel like it was an appropriate thing for Gatesville to lay off everybody and make them go work for Sodexo. There's a certain amount of loyalty, I think you have from the local people. And they were very afraid of that. The staff back then when we did this,
How many
oh,
employees,
we're all gonna lose our jobs.
how many employees do we have?
I think about 30, roughly 30 in the cafeteria. But they have, Sodexo has a powerhouse of expertise. A lot of it right here in the Waco area, but then they bring in Janet
When
Holland.
Sodexo first came on, we took, us principals and some other people took our people to
Yeah, you remember that?
dinners that they did
Yeah.
for the kids,
Yes.
and they demonstrated the different kinds of foods that they were going to be serving. Are we still as pleased with the food as we used to be? When
I
that
think
first came
so.
on, we were like, really, this is really good. Has the
Yeah,
quality stayed good?
I think so. I just, last year just threw everybody for a loop. And this year I want to kind of get back into doing things like we're supposed to be doing. Like there's a menu committee that's supposed to be working with the SHAC committee, but the SHAC committee never met last year. They only met twice, and the food service was never a part of the agenda. Well, see, that's not supposed to be the way it is. You're supposed to have something on the SHAC agenda at every quarterly meeting that deals with your food service program and your menu selection, and based on surveys of kids. So she's already got one survey out, I think right before we left for this ice storm, to the high school kids. That's where we were going to start. Do a survey about high school kids. We want to know what they think about the food that we're serving and what improvements they'd like to see or changes they want to see. So I think, we probably in the last year or two, a little bit lax on the survey end of it. and really getting feedback from the SHAC committee and students in terms of what, you know, how they like the food. But the menus, you know, the menus are built collegially with all of the other school districts that use Sodexo. So they have a big menu planning meeting in the summer every year, and they get all the heads of all these different schools. Waco's, you know, ISD's on there, and Robinson's on there, China Springs on there, and so they'll, you know, they also have their own survey that they bring to that annual meeting. Because we constantly want to make sure that it's pleasing for the kids. Yes, ma'am.
If we were to change companies, Gail's position would be comparable with that company, or I don't want her to be nervous about,
Well,
of course, that's
you
optional,
know,
I
we have to cross that
suppose.
bridge if it comes to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hire Gail in a heartbeat as
Yeah.
our manager.
And just go back to the way, okay,
And just
whatever works.
plead with whatever the new company was, is that this needs to be your person,
Yes.
you know, so,
That's kind of how we do it.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
Are we
That's
still
great.
doing the afternoon meal program?
Yeah, that's still going well.
Okay.
And we, going back to the taste testing, I remember before the pandemic, Gail will fix things periodically for the kids to experiment with. And some of them will guess which one they'll like and which one they won't. And so it'll surprise you sometimes. They're like, no, we didn't like that, but we like this one instead. You know, so it's important to get their input because they're the ones that go in there to eat it.
That's right.
Yeah.
If they don't like it, they don't eat it. You know, it doesn't help our food service.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a business.
Yeah.
You know, you're running like a restaurant, sort of.
These,
You have to please the customers.
these other, the China Spring, the ones that were up there a while ago, that use Sodexo, do they also have their own ISD people working there, or does Sodexo just run the whole thing for them?
I think in most of these cases, like the ones in Region 12 that I'm aware of, that they do it kind of like we do. Where the head is a Sodexo employee, and the rest of them are district employees. They maybe, like Waco may have 2 or 3 Sodexo employees, but they're much bigger. But I think they all basically follow the same principle, where the rank and file stay on district payroll, and upper management is Sodexo. The Sodexo, you know, I mean, they have their own training program. She gives a lot of training, and she has to follow the Sodexo way, you know. She can't just do what she wants.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess we'll vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. I guess you're gonna tell us about meal prices.
All right, meal prices. So this is, relates to it because as part of that RFP that we had to construct and send it down to TDA, is a detailed budget for next year. So how'd you like to work on a detailed budget for the food service program for 21-22? And you don't even know what's going on, hardly. You don't know what TDA is going to require. You don't know if we're going to be, you know, 100% across the board free, or if it's going to be back the way it used to be. But you got to come up with something. There was actually talk of, in fact, I think it was the USDA. Yeah, USDA actually authorized states to give these food service management companies another year extension. Which, when I heard that, it's like, yay, don't do RFP this spring. How are we going to do budget? Because they're like, I'm not sure exactly how you predict that, knowing the tremendous uncertainties that we live under right now. But TDA chose not to go that route. And so they said, oh, we're going to do it the old way. We're going to make you go for bids. All right. So we came up with a budget, and in so doing, you have to come up with meal prices, right? So the meal prices that I have for you is that these right here are comparisons of comparable districts in our area. And this first one here is, for instance, breakfast elementary price. Breakfast elementary price. So we're at 160 this year, right there. And we're recommending that we go to, we have been at 160 for 5 years. So we're recommending going to $1.75, which more than likely a lot of these other districts are going to do the same thing, because we have to fill out a meal pricing tool that TDA puts out for us, and we have to follow that. And they haven't released the one for 21-22 yet. So I'm just kind of going on what I'm thinking they're going to do, and they're going to require that we go up. I can tell you that right now. If we've been the same rate for 5 years, they're going to require that we go up. So what we're recommending there is $1.75 on elementary from the current 160, and then down here on breakfast at the secondary, we're going to recommend also $1.75 versus the 160. And then lunch, we're kind of low end on the elementary lunch, and that lunch at elementary is $2.55. We're going to recommend going to $2.75, which would put us pretty much in the middle of the pack. And again, these would be comparing our next year rates to all these districts' current rates, but realizing they're going to go up next year too, because they're having to operate with the same TDA formulas. Lunch secondary, we're at $2.75. You see, most of the pack is around 3, and that's where we want to be, 3. So we're going to recommend 3 for secondary lunch. And that rate hasn't gone up since 2018. A little bit more increase on the adult rates, but you got to realize the adult rate they really want to look at. Okay, that's adult. And breakfast adults, we're at $2.35, and we're going to recommend $2.50. It's not too big of an increase. We'll put us right there, but a lot of these guys are going to be going up as well. And then on the lunch, we're at the bottom currently. We're at $3.50. We're going to recommend going to 4. And you can see that most of them are in that 4 range. But you got to realize that 4 is basically the reimbursement rate that the feds give us per student. So they're thinking, you mean we're going to pay you $4 to feed a student, and you're not even charging $4 to feed an adult. So that's where all these guys are falling in line at the $4 range. So we're recommending these rate increases for next school year. And that's the rates that we put into the budget for 21-22. Questions? Comments?
What a deal.
Do we have a motion?
Is there a motion for this?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
accept it.
Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Second. Linda? Any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed.
Well, I'm done. Hey,
Thanks, Gerald.
all right, thank you guys.
Yeah.
It's great to see all of you.
Good. Glad you're warm now. And Pam, you've
Hands
got
back up.
I got that.
Temple ISD Regional Day School Program.
We have come to the time of year where it's time to renew our shared agreement with the Regional Day School Program for the Deaf with Temple ISD. This is a program we use for our deaf and hard of hearing students who what we do here in our classes is not enough. They need more interpretive services. The tuition that we have for this per student is currently set at $7,500. We had a meeting actually this morning, and that will be going up about $100 for next school year. But it's still considerably less than what we were previously paying with the other district we used. So my recommendation is that we sign the shared agreement with Temple ISD and their day school program for the deaf to renew it. If that-
I'm
You make the
ready to
motion?
say- Yeah. I make the
Okay.
motion.
Jimmy made the motion, is there a second? Calvin, any questions?
How many do we have participating right now?
Currently, we don't have any students, as of now. We have some on the horizon that could potentially be going,
We have to be prepared.
but yes, but we keep them on the back burner for when we do need the services.
But we literally have a slew that are visually impaired. How many did you say today, Kay?
Yes.
31 or 18?
She has 52 on her caseload, but for Gatesville ISD for auditory and visual, we're sitting at 18 students. So that has jumped over half. I mean, at the beginning of this year, we were sitting at like 5 or 6. We've had a lot of transfer students come in this year in the special education department, and visual impairments have been some of the top eligibilities coming in. So, yeah, our numbers as a whole are up for special education right now. So, yes, we're all growing.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed, thank you,
Thank you.
Pam.
All right, I've got the next few.
Back to Barry.
So I'll try to go fairly quickly here. The first one is the inclement weather. So the state of Texas had a little bit of mercy on the school districts in the sense that we were all in the grips of basically almost a quasi blizzard. And you would think they would just go ahead and, for the whole state, say, well, that week's a wash. But they want us to go ahead and apply for a waiver. And so there's two different types of waivers. And I've got one mistake here that, Marcy, you may want to note in the minutes. This should be January 11th, I believe was the bad weather day. The first go-around that we had snow, the pretty snow that was not as bad as this last one we had. And so those first few days, January 11th, and then the first couple of days of this next weather system, we went remote. And so if you go remote, they want you in the teal system fill out a waiver. It's under the other category, and let them know what you did so you can claim the minutes that you were actually instructing, but it was remotely. On the days when it got so bad that people didn't even have electricity, so you couldn't even do remote, they said, well, you'll just fill out a different waiver called the missed school day waiver. And so Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, we just went ahead and closed school completely because kids didn't have electricity, they didn't have water, they weren't going to be doing school. And they were just trying to survive, basically. And so, so basically what I'm recommending to the board is that we approve the waiver request as presented so I can go into TIL and submit those to the state. And again, the only change would be that should be January 11th, not 18th. So those first 3 dates would be others, the next 3 would be missed school.
Okay,
I'll make the motion.
make the motion, I'll second it. Any questions? Okay, it's pretty clear. All those who want to vote yes, raise your hand.
We're getting automatic here.
We're not going to belabor the point here.
No, let's go through.
Next, remote instruction days for high school during STAR testing. Now this is kind of like the good old days back when you had final exams. And remember, if you had good grades and good attendance, you only had to do like a couple, and the rest of the time you got to stay home. Well, this is what we want to do with STAR testing at just the high school. So this doesn't involve junior high, intermediate, elementary, or primary, just the high school. On the days that they have the STAR test, if you have the STAR test that day, we want you to come up in person. But if you are like a senior and you've passed all those, we want you to stay home. So on April 6th, anybody that needs to take English 1 would come to school. If you have already passed that, stay home. So we're wanting, the impetus behind that is that the high school's in shambles. We have very limited space, and we need as many rooms as we can because you have all those small group testers, individual testers, read alouds. We need all the space we can get. We can't have all those other kids there that we're trying to occupy while we're trying to get these tests done. And so on those 5 dates, April 6th, 8th, 4th, 5th, and 6th of May, those would be virtual days for any high school student only not taking the test. And so again, it's more of a logistical issue more than anything. And so if you guys are okay with that, we would start communicating that with our parents. So they got plenty of forewarning. Hey, guess what? Your high school kid may stay home on April 6th if they don't need to take this test. And again, it's a logistical issue for us. All other kids, campuses would conduct in-person school as usual.
As usual.
I recommend we pass it.
Okay. Charles made the motion and Cheyenne seconded. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you.
All right, the next one was kind of at you guys' request, if there was anything you could do to kind of just reinforce, reiterate that you're behind the, the staff as far as we want kids to come to school, we want kids to do their work, and so y'all mentioned, is there some sort of just resolution we could do? And so I just made a real simple resolution here, basically stating, we're under a disaster. We've got all the COVID pandemic going on. We've got in-person and remote learning, but we've got a large number of students not completing their work. The attendance of students has been down across this campuses this school year. You guys have a substantial public interest in ensuring the kids are in school. There's a ripple effect for years to come. If you drop out, that has implications for crime and unemployment and all kinds of bad stuff. So we want you in school. And so basically it's resolved that you guys, with all those above things, that you want me, the superintendent, and all of our staff to, again, require students either attend school in person or answer the online engagement questions every day. So you're getting counted present. And then secondly, the authority to continue to require students to complete all their assignments and schoolwork. So they'll be promoted, receive credit for a class, or even graduate. And so again, that's not anything earth-shattering. It's basically just you guys saying, hey, we want you to come to school, and we want you to do your work. And so if you feel comfortable with that, my recommendation would be to adopt that resolution.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I think that's good.
Well, thank you guys for being behind. The teachers really appreciate you guys feeling the conundrum they're in, because they're the students' biggest fan. They're their biggest advocate. They're the ones rooting for them the most. But boy, I tell you what, it puts them in a tough position when the kids do absolutely nothing. And they've got to be able to feel like, they don't want to feel like they're being forced to just pass some kid on, and they've not done any work all year. They're not prepared. It's not fair. It's not right. So they appreciate you guys supporting them.
Okay, motion? Linda, second? Calvin? Okay, any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Great. Is that a yes, Calvin?
Calvin, you in favor? Are you in favor of
Now this one, Calvin's been looking forward to this one.
Okay.
Calvin has been on me about the prom.
Oh, because I've been people on me about that. Oh my goodness, it's right.
The people have spoken and they want prom. By golly, come.
Calvin's working it.
That's right. So I put out a little video, it's been several weeks ago now, and basically I said that, I thought I was delivering fairly positive news, that we would have a spring pep rally like we did in the fall, which was really a fun event that up at the stadium, and it went well, it was safe. We'd have all of our academic and athletic awards type ceremonies. They just wouldn't be banquets. Food seems to be the big spreader of COVID, so we're just, the food's not a big deal. But they just want to have the recognition and the event. And we're going to have kindergarten graduation. It'll be at the primary instead of the high school, and they'll do a couple of classes each day to kind of spread out. Baccalaureate, the faith-based optional program, we'll be able to do that easily. Graduation should be at the stadium. There's no reason we've had soccer and football and pep rally. We'll have, they'll be at the stadium. There could be some capacity limits, but it'll be at the stadium. Prom was the only one I kind of hedged on a little bit and said, well, it's tentative because just the nature, at the time I made the video, of course, COVID was spiking. It seemed like there was some horror story on the news every day about just the horrors of COVID. And so I was a little bit apprehensive. I ran this all past our city, county, medical people. I said, this is kind of what we're thinking. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody said, no, don't do that. I think after the county fair didn't show a widespread of COVID, and that was a mass of people, we should be safe. Prom will be smaller than the fair by a large amount, and they'll have on masks, bedazzled with sequins and glitter. It'll be very nice. But those, I tell you what, those girls were ready to meet me in the parking lot. I mean, they wanted that prom, and so I said, I'm all for it. I've been hit up at Walmart. Calvin's been hit up. They want prom. So Dean Smith at Texas Station really graciously said, hey, I'll give you Texas Station for free on April 17th. And Stonebridge, where we normally do it, the Bruden sold it. So that venue was no longer an option because they're kind of, I think, maybe doing some renovations or something. And so Texas Station's a great area. It's large. You've got a fenced-in area. You can pull those garage doors up. You get lots of air. I've asked all 5 of the SROs to be there. Prom will last from 8 to 11. Same dress code, same everything we've normally done in the past. Same DJ, same all that. So I feel good about it, but I wanted to run it past you guys so y'all could weigh in on it. And so my recommendation would be to approve all of these events as presented. The only one that kind of got nixed that was also the bonfire. We didn't do it in the fall because COVID was, I don't know, that's just such a huge amount of people. And it's people from all over. It's not just your school community, it's the whole community. And with it spiking at TDCJ at the time, and some other, I said, well, maybe the spring, but I like the bonfire. I think it's a great tradition. But I will say this, I think a lot of districts have abandoned it many years ago. Many years ago. Not anything to do with COVID, but just other liabilities. Because think about it. You've got all these kids here. Let's get a humongous stack of firewood, catch it on fire, and dance around it in a circle. And let's just hope nothing goes wrong. And so, again, I don't have any plans of nixing it, but it inherently is a little bit risky just because it gets so hot. We've had kids step on nails in the past, you know, that luckily it's not anything too large where you would have an accident like what happened in A&M, where you've got those big timbers. But anyway, I don't think the kids they're disappointed by that, but everything else we should be able to have.
Would there be a consideration to have a bonfire return at future years?
Yes, oh yes. Okay. Yeah, the main thing that nixed it this time was just the fact that there's so many people in the community, and at the time, like I said, it was spiking in different sectors of the employment, and I thought, I see people, from those jobs that are get-togethers all the time, and it's just a mass amount of people out there. And that heat, it gets so hot, everybody kind of goes into one, to get away from it.
And it's so tied to homecoming.
Yes.
They're not homecoming in the spring.
Right. So hopefully it will make its triumphant return next year, but everything else looks like it will be on in some capacity, just a little bit of mask wearing, and we should be good to go.
Okay. Is there a motion for that? Calvin.
Oh, yes! Look at him. Calvin's the hero.
Cheyenne seconded.
Yeah.
Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand.
You better get it.
They can rest easy. Prom's coming. All right. And they'll have a little bit.
You can rest.
The other good thing about that is that prom was originally scheduled at Stonebridge in March. So this will give them a little bit more time. Because I kind of warn them, don't go out and buy something. Well, heck, most of them are already bought. They buy it so many months in advance that by the time I got around to it, they'd already spent
$600.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll be happy. The next thing is the school calendar. So I had another big group of folks get together and weigh in on the calendar. I think by and large people like our current calendar. It's basically the same thing as last year. And we had 92% of the staff that responded to the survey liked it or strongly liked it. Only about 8% were on the other side of like they didn't like it. I sent a follow-up survey question. The big thing is that I think our spring break over the years has kind of moved up a little bit too early. It's gotten off from other districts and maybe other colleges around here. So I sent them a follow-up question and said, hey, the other big thing is when you get paid around spring break. Because they like to get paid before spring break so they have money to spend to travel. And so the way it's been falling is they get paid after spring break and spring break's real early. Well, the 85% of them on the follow-up question said, no, move that spring break a week later. Let us get paid before it so we'll have the money. And so this calendar that we're presenting to you tonight reflects that. And I'll go ahead and pull it up here. The rest of it is pretty much the same as this year. So you have new teacher orientation those 3 days. You have 6 days of staff development. They like starting school the middle of the week. They only want to do a couple days and then they want to be done with the kids. And so starting it on a Thursday was well received. These early outs here, the 3rd and the 17th, correspond with football games that are the furthest away. And so we always do those, so we'll have more time to get the band and the players to cheer out of here. We do a couple of days in October for staff development. We have our week for Thanksgiving. We have a staff development day that day right before the 2 weeks for Christmas. We come back in January. Pull this down here.
Now you got, it doesn't show on Thanksgiving. The one I'm looking at is 24, 25, and 26.
So those first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, are comp days.
Okay.
We've done that for years.
Right, okay.
And they,
I see that now, my apologies.
yeah, every staff member takes the whole week.
Right,
But they have done their day.
Yeah, they've already done it.
good. Yeah, I see it.
January, we come back, we'll get a staff development day to kind of ease back into it. You have the fair day on the 14th. Becky Coward said that should be the same. You have MLK Day on the 17th. A couple days in February for staff development. There's spring break a week later with payday on the 11th. So they were, again, happy about that. And then a staff development day the day after spring break, again, to kind of ease back into it. Good Friday, right there on tax day. And then May, you've got the end of the semester on that Thursday. You graduate everybody on that Friday the 20th.
Wow,
That's early.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
And so, kept the same number of student and teacher days. So if you guys are good with it, the staff seemed good with it. I think they're excited about spring break being more aligned with other districts and getting paid beforehand.
Good. Okay.
Usually it includes a week of the 15th. That's what I always remember.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Motion for that, for the calendar?
I motion.
Charles, second. Linda? Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand.
It just lacks 2 grading periods,
Thank you.
Dr. Paul.
Too great. Now we get to the exciting stuff. Policy update.
I'm for it, let's go.
Yeah.
There's
So,
not much we can really do about it.
right. So basically, for you new guys, TASB recommends changes to our policies every few months, and they are our legal advisors. So basically, when they say hop, we say how high, because they keep us out of trouble. So the local policies require a little bit more attention, but they only had luckily 4 policies that were local that were up for any sort of change, and I made a little synopsis here. And usually it's pretty minute, and like you said, when the lawyers are saying do it, we do it. One was about cybersecurity, at-will employment, health and wellness, and community relations. And so again, like the first one was to ease compliance with state law, requiring the board to select a cybersecurity training program. And so, I mean, some of the stuff, it's mundane, kind of just, again, policy stuff. If you saw anything in there that you have a question about, let me know. But if not, I would recommend that we approve it as presented.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Is there a
I'll second.
second? Charlie?
Alderson.
Alderson.
Okay.
Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you.
The next one is also kind of run of the mill. Every couple of years, we buy the contract forms from our other lawyer group, Holly Wardell from Aquabah Wardell. And for a couple $100, they give us all the different actual templates for the contracts. And so it keeps us up to date with all the legal changes. And so we buy that contract package from them each year or every other year to stay up to date. And so again, I would recommend that the board approve the use of the contract package offered by Aquabah Wardell.
Okay, is there a motion? Jimmy? And a second. Calvin? Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Motion carries. Thank you.
Trust have a speak.
We'll take a little break for, before we start executive. Is that good?
That'd be
We're
good.
gonna shut down at 8:11. Is that correct?